Hi, this is Dr. Tony Cooper, and this is Life Without Baggage. In this podcast, I'll help you develop a stronger sense of self, develop firmer boundaries, and also learn how to lean into the gentle promptings of the Holy Spirit who can help you navigate life. My purpose is to help you get free from the emotional baggage that weighs you down so that you can be fully alive and engaged in life. My media includes audiobooks, self-help books, videos, and this podcast. Just a reminder before we get into today's episode that this is not a substitute for medication or counseling. If you're having thoughts of harming yourself or another person, or if this material triggers you, please contact your doctor or a mental health specialist to help you with your concerns. I've been a guest recently on the Deep Voice Man podcast, where we talk about trauma, how counseling works, and also how that intersects with issues of faith. I'm sharing some excerpts today from that interview. So here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luke John Louis, the host of the Deep Voice Man Show. Thank you for joining us today. Our guest is Dr. Tony Cooper, and she is an author and psychologist who helps adults develop strategies for greater peace and confidence in managing the stresses of life. So it's an honor to have her here with us today. I guess to start off, can you tell us about your background and how you first gravitated towards what you're doing now?
Well, thanks for having me. There's a few different things that contributed to me getting into this field. First of all, I was raised in a family that had some pretty intense dysfunction in a couple of members, some in my household and others in the extended family. And so as a result of that, I grew up kind of wondering, what is up with people? And so that sort of created an interest in trying to understand people. Also, when I was in, I think, ninth grade, we had career day. And there were some professionals that came in and talked about different professions and what they do. And I was really fascinated by the attorney and by the psychologist. So that kind of piqued my interest again. And then around that same time, I saw a movie called Captain Newman, MD. It was about a VA hospital that treated vets essentially with PTSD and other kinds of mental health issues. And so I think that sealed the deal for me.
So thank you for sharing your story with us. It's great that obviously that you not only survived what you went through with your family, but you thrived. You were able to take that negative and turn it into a positive, of course,
Well,
and
that's what
help
we're all
others.
trying to figure out, right? Some people do the
Yeah.
best they can, and other people have so much bitterness and anger that they take it out on somebody or everybody. And so, we have to try to learn what is safe and what isn't. And also, a big one, Luke, is not to blame yourself for other people's crap.
Yeah, but obviously it's very common. I think this is when people do that. That I think the term for it is called transference. Is that what they call it? When they take their bitterness out on others?
That's probably projection. It doesn't matter what you
Okay.
call it. We all know what it feels like.
Right. Right. So obviously you had mentioned you had an interest in the human mind, right?
Yeah, trying to
From a
understand
young
people.
Yes. And that's why I find psychology very intriguing. So you had that career day, and I think you made the right choice, by the way.
Well,
So
thanks.
it's
And I was reading, and once I started reading then in high school more about, it's crazy. I was reading Freud and I didn't understand most of it, but I got enough out of it that I designed a personality test to give to my friends and they let me.
okay.
So yeah, it was just like sometimes there's just innate things in us that we're gifted in different ways. And sometimes there's just these things in us that really we should use because it's good for us and it's good for other people. And so I'm fortunate that all those things kind of came together for me pretty early in life. I didn't go immediately into mental health. When I was around 15, figured out how many years I would have to be in school. And I thought, that is going to ruin my social life. So I sort of put it on hold for a little while, but I came back to it pretty early in my career.
But I've noticed that trauma is a big buzzword now in so many different modalities. And because so many people have gone through trauma, whether it's emotional trauma, psychological, physical, sexual, generational, ancestral, in the DNA, the cell memory, and so many people are dealing with it. But I'm curious, what would you say to someone who feels they don't think what you do is necessary and one could do the work on their own?
I'd probably say, hey, if you get stuck, I'm here.
Okay.
It's not that easy to do by yourself, but I don't try to convince people. It's like when they're ready, they'll know. And if they're not ready, I'm not going to argue with them.
Right. And that's an amazing attitude to have. And when it comes to trauma recovery, the demand totally outstrips the supply, right?
There's a big demand. There is. And it does seem as though society is becoming more chaotic. And so even if people haven't been through trauma, they may have been through some kind of significant neglect or chaotic kinds of situations that really undermine the strength of the personality. So unfortunately, there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's really sort of unusual for an adult to make it to adulthood without some significant things that they have to sort of unlearn or overcome. And most people you can't really tell. If they don't tell you, you probably wouldn't know. But it's just become extremely complex to navigate the problems in our culture, the challenges to family, and also just the excessive amount of media that really undermines any sense of confidence.
Okay. And I totally agree with you that everyone has gone through some form of trauma, and there's so many different types of trauma, and more people are learning about it, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And you mentioned personalities because apparently, there's been a lot of hullabaloo, I think that's how you say it, about narcissism, right? So many books, YouTube channels, and people pleasing and whatnot. And so, and a lot of it comes from the childhood trauma that people have experienced, where I always tell people that hurt people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate that someone may have who has a troubled past upbringing may go on to become a narcissist who hurts others. And I've had
Yeah.
bad experiences with narcissists and
Mhm.
people with these personality disorders. You probably have treated people with this ailment.
I think the last research I saw, about a third of people who come for treatment have a personality disorder of some kind. And narcissists aren't always created by abuse. Some narcissists are created because they are raised without any boundaries or limits, and they're treated as though they are so special. One of the parents makes that child the favorite, and it ruins them for the rest of their lives.
Wow. So that overindulgence
Yes.
may be the cause of it. So it's like a combination of genetics and environment, is what I've read.
Yeah, I don't know how much genetics plays into it. I haven't studied that. But right now, the buzzword is narcissist, and just about anybody you don't like gets labeled as a narcissist. So I think it gets overused. It seems like there are trends in what, like, is in the, I should say, like general media for the general public, buzzwords for the general public. And so I kind of discourage people from making any diagnostic decisions for someone in their personal life. And even as a therapist, we can't diagnose someone in our personal lives because you're jaded, right? You either like them or dislike them, and that's going to color your judgment.
Right. Due to those hidden inner biases that we
Oh,
we
yeah.
all have. And there is something to that. And so you mentioned media, and So I do a lot of research on it. A lot of it's pop psychology, which you're referring to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not real psychology, but the pop psychology. I sometimes engage in it. I understand it's not the real thing, of course, but my understanding is that with social media, that because due to the advent of social media, that a lot of this self-centeredness and narcissism perhaps is on the rise. I'm curious if you can expand on how media is having a harmful impact on us all.
Well, there's so many facets to that. There's a lot of power to media. We started off talking about how that influenced my career choice. So we're becoming very aware of the addictive nature of a lot of the media and platforms that are widespread everywhere. There's also these messages, these subtle, sometimes not so subtle messages about what is okay. So if you look this way, if you have this quality, you're okay. If you don't have this quality, you're not okay. And so it makes people very dissatisfied with themselves. So, young girls, especially, this leads to all kinds of eating disorders. There's lots of research on how people are very misled by social media. If you're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is you use, you see mostly these happy photos and you get the idea everybody's happy except me and my life sucks. But the reality is their photos are probably touched up. They're not going to put the picture of, when their husband came home drunk last night or, when their kid got arrested. It's like it's so misleading. It's fantasy, a lot of it. And so we can get confused and lose our bearings of who we are and our own innate worth and value because media is designed to influence, and it's not usually in our best interest.
Yeah, yeah. That it's interesting because it's all about the addiction, right? It's addictive,
Yeah.
and they when something's addictive, you make money, but it harms society as a whole. But what the hey, and so you see that with a lot of things, right? With alcohol, with gambling, and whatnot. But when it comes to the internet, I always tell people that our caveman brains can't handle the internet, right? It just can't. There's
It's
so
too
much
much.
about it that's addictive. Yeah, and my understanding is in many places they ban young people from utilizing social media, and because of the harm it does with the cyberbullying and I understand there's a rise perhaps in suicide. You mentioned eating
Yeah.
disorders and
Yeah.
depression. I was watching the news, and apparently that a lot of these tech firms behind these social media platforms, they're being sued. There have been lawsuits filed with Instagram, with Facebook, and it's it's all very troubling. And when I have children, I don't think I'm going to even let them go on the internet at all. I'm totally going to just prohibit it. And it also contributes to that paranoia that you mentioned, right?
Hmm.
That comparison. Now, you mentioned that you treat a lot of folks, some of them with the perhaps having the NPD, right? And I'm wondering, what type of folks do you normally work with, though?
I only work with adults, and people come in with issues with anxiety, with depression, with relationship concerns. Many people come in saying they had a difficult childhood and they know they need to work on something connected to that. So it's sort of a range of things, but so almost anything. I mean, everybody's different, so almost anything can come out, and it sort of unfolds over time as I get to know the person.
Okay. And that's excellent. So you've seen it all, right? Everything and
I would
anything.
say most. I'd say most all. I won't say all because every time I think I've seen all, it's like, wow, I didn't see that. So
Yeah, I guess I see what you mean. And thank you for the clarification because there's always that black swan, right?
really, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
For all of us, huh?
yeah, jumps out of nowhere. It's like, oh, okay. Oh my goodness. So, all right. So you mainly work with adults with a range
Yeah,
of issues,
yeah.
which is amazing. And you find that what's common is the that childhood trauma, and it's nuts how so many people have that. those issues as a child when they don't have that much control over their lives and environment, and it's beyond sad. So,
Yeah,
but I'm
the
curious. Yeah.
the go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, no, you go ahead because you're the guest, and I want the guest to go ahead.
Okay, well, thanks. So I don't know what words I can say without getting you. So SA is about 1 in 3 females and maybe 1 in 6 males. It's probably higher than that in males, but males are less likely to ever report it. So that's a huge percentage of people, and that's just one type of abuse. So if you look at homes where there was violence between the parents, that does things to watch it, whether it makes you more angry or it causes you to pick someone that mistreats others. I mean, there's so many things that can go haywire, and people carry that with them. Again, you may not know it if you don't ask. I'm probably the nosiest. I tell my clients, I'm probably the nosiest therapist you will ever have. But the better I understand you, the more intelligent I can make suggestions.
Okay. And it's so important that you know the symptoms, right, in order to make the proper suggestions and maybe a diagnosis and perhaps also prescribe the right medication, right?
Yeah, I can't prescribe medication. I just talk people to death.
Oh, okay. Well, that maybe that's even better, right? Based on what I've been told about, medication being overprescribed. And so many people go through that emotional, psychological trauma of witnessing abuse, right?
Yeah,
And oftentimes as adults, they have that messed up nervous system. And
yes.
you mentioned you deal with folks with anxiety and whatnot. And so with that nervous system out of whack, they're constantly stuck in fight or flight mode, right? And
Or easily get put in it, like
okay.
way too easily get. The word is triggered, although that word gets overused for everything.
Yeah.
But in the classic sense, to the reminders of different things can trigger a panic attack because it's too similar to something the person has experienced. And so that is like the clinical use of the word trigger. It is tapping into an actual trauma, just not like this person annoys me and I got mad. I mean, that's can be addressed, but in the classic sense, a trigger is a reminder of a trauma.
Right. And thank you so much for clarifying what that word means. And it's one of those overused, pop psychology terms, right? And that we got to watch out for. And, because obviously panic attacks are not fun. They're awful.
No, they're serious. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, I understand that people want to have some kind of language for what they're experiencing. I just like if I'm not going to ask my friends, what do you mean? That's not a real trigger. But when a person in my office uses that term, I want to say, well, what exactly do you mean? So that I can understand, yeah, that was a real panic attack, or yeah, that person annoyed me and I walked out of the room. Okay, so that's more of a normal experience. It's not fun, but it's still kind of like the normal range of experience.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting how these triggers work, right? It could be a loud noise.
Yes, or a smell.
Um, yeah. And when you say you talk to them, it reminds me the modality of DBT. I just recently learned that all the different modalities, right? I think DBT is the one where they talk a lot or they get through it through talking. Is that my understanding? Or
DBT's an approach to treatment. It's, I mean, they hopefully everybody's talking, but it's more in terms of what you do with what they tell you and how you frame
okay,
the situation.
okay,
It's good for
and thank
certain
you.
kinds of disorders.
All right, and love that clarification because I'm learning so much about this as I talk to more and more people in your field of work about
Yeah, I
the
see you
different
have a lot of
modalities.
curiosity about things that aren't the average person doesn't really care about. So you have a lot of
Yeah.
intellectual curiosity.
Yes, and, I've always been that way, but obviously, I get the sense that you do things differently, So I'm wondering, like, how are you, if you can expand on that, how are you different from others in terms of how you practice therapy?
From what I've gathered, because I have clients who, have seen other therapists and they'll say, "Wow, you ask a lot of questions," because everybody's different. So even if you come in with a particular problem, the way your personality is wired is going to vary a great deal from person to person. So I would say one of the things that's different is I really get into the weeds with people. I have certain things I ask them to understand what it was like growing up, to understand what the family dynamics were, to get at how did the family handle anger, conflict, discipline, how much did they show affection, and specific experiences that we would all classify as trauma. I poke around, like different things that are pretty common that people don't necessarily talk about. And then I try to like formulate in my own mind, how's this person coping with this? So where are they out of balance because they've had to compensate for this, that, or the other? And what obstacle might be in their way of why they're not moving forward, why they feel stuck? And then what are the tools I can use? So I don't know that I'm terribly unique, but I do gather that, your personality, just like going to a family doctor, the personality of the professional will come out in how they interact with you, how they approach things. It just does. And so some of it is probably just more, I really want to understand the nuts and bolts before I start making suggestions. And so that they have the best chance of succeeding, because it's not one size fits all. It used to be very popular that if someone in your background did something bad when you were growing up, that you go confront them. I think people are still being told they should do that. And for most people, that's the worst thing you can do, because they're not going to tell you, "Oh, you're right, I'm sorry." They're going to tell you why you're wrong. So, or that you made it up or it never happened. And so then you just add trauma to trauma. There's so much connected to what is a good idea to help this person move forward and what is not likely to work, what is actually likely to make it worse, and what's the person ready for.
Wow. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And again, thank you for sharing your methodology here. And so you're, as you mentioned, you're nosy, right? You're
I
like a
am.
detective. Yeah. Well, that's great, right? But so you have to be like an investigator, right?
I do
A
think of it that
detective,
way. Yep.
right? And you have to have pose many questions, because no two people are the same.
Right.
I truly believe that, and it's interesting how so many people can experience the same thing, but maybe have different reactions. But you mentioned that obviously people have their ways of coping when they're out of balance and they're stuck, and you have to figure that out, and so you can perhaps use the right tool or modality, I suppose. And then
Yeah.
I guess watch out for your own biases if they come into play. And so the questions is a key part of it, right?
Yeah, to understand the person, how they're put together, how they look at things, because chances are they're distorting how they view themselves if they've been through too much, or people have blind spots. We all do. There's no way around it. And so what happens is people, like, for example, in relationships, people get stuck in one way of doing relationships. So if they are always rescuing and nurturing, you're an easy target. But if you're always angry and controlling and you have to be in charge, that's going to put other people off, and you may not even realize. You might think you're helping, but you're actually pushing people away. And so there's a lot of blind spots. And so I try to understand, how is this person trying to compensate, or how are they trying to solve this? What are they doing that is working well? And where is there either a blind spot or a skill that maybe they just never learned to ask for help? Sometimes it's really simple, but everybody's different. And I just try to understand, okay, And like, what are the specific areas in life now that they don't like how it's going? So I use the example also of this seems to help adults. Relationships are in some ways like a vending machine. So in a healthy, happy relationship, you put something in, you get something out. You put something in, something nice comes back. But in an unhealthy relationship or an unsatisfactory relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner or a relative or a friend, if you're putting in your dollar and nothing comes back when you hit the button, you don't get your Diet Coke, nothing comes out. Or you put your money in, you make your investment, and the cookies that come out are all smashed. And every time you go to this machine, whatever you put in, you don't get back what you want, not even close. And so after a while, you have to say, how many times are you going to work on this vending machine? It clearly doesn't work. And so that's where sometimes we need to change our strategy instead of try harder.
Right. I love the vending machine analogy. Definitely hit home with me. And
Okay.
this idea that, yeah, because I'm a snacker and a foodie, so that's why. But yeah, so but this idea that you mentioned that it's not with relationships, it's not one way, it's not one size fits all. Totally agree with that, and people understand that. And folks who are people pleasers have to watch out because they have difficulty saying no and drawing boundaries. So they're like prey for the predators out there. So it's like a match made in hell. They'll latch onto you. So I agree with you. They have to watch out for that. And oftentimes they do engage in that gaslighting when you confront them that
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but you mentioned that sometimes people have thoughts or things that don't really they believe it to be true, but it's not really true, and you have to kind of guide them. I believe that's called that cognitive restructuring, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So I can give you a frequent example of that. I am a person of faith, and many of my clients are people of faith. And sometimes what happens is people get this idea that it is their duty to suffer. And so they don't try to protect themselves. They don't set a limit. They feel guilty, like God is mad at them if they don't agree to do everything that other people ask them to do. So they end up getting burned out, getting resentful, just becoming depressed or overwhelmed because they feel like they don't have the right to say no, and they feel guilty if they do. And they think that God expects them to do that for everybody all the time. And there's a lot of examples. I was just thinking about this yesterday that if you look at the life of Jesus, there were times his family wanted to come and get him out of public ministry. He didn't even meet with them. He was like, I got stuff to do, you know? And when the Pharisees were giving him a lot of trouble, if you've seen the Bible movies, he did not hold back. He called them basically whitewashed tombs, hypocrites. So we don't think of Jesus as confrontational, but he was. And also when he was on trial, he didn't even answer some of the questions. And I use that example. It's like if somebody doesn't really want to know the truth, they just want to harass you and put you on the defensive. Jesus didn't answer every question, so I guess you don't have to either.
Well, I love that. I really do. And Jesus was he was a renegade. He was something else.
There you
And
go.
he was not a people pleaser. He did set boundaries. And I'll give you another example when he whipped the
Oh, yeah.
what is it? The money changers in the temple, he was very unhappy.
There
So
you go.
anger is a normal human emotion, but you can feel it. It's okay to express it. And there's no doubt about it, because a lot of people who are religious, they have that Ned Flanders syndrome, right? You know, Ned Flanders with the
Yes.
senses.
Yes.
And it's great that you work with a lot of these people who are strong and devout in their faith and whatnot, who maybe not fully interpreting the scriptures as the way they should be and whatnot. I'm curious, can you give us an example of how you integrate faith principles for people who want to use prayer as a tool for
Sure.
growth?
Sure. So for my clients who do want to incorporate aspects of their faith, what the Bible says, what, using prayer. So I can incorporate that in how we work together, but I don't force it on people that don't want that. So, and one example is many, many times when people go through something difficult, especially if it's earlier in life, they may make a vow. I will never trust again. All men are mean, violent, abusive. All women are liars and gold diggers. They may or may not know that they have made a vow, but in their hearts and in their minds, they make a decision. They adopt a label that closes off big parts of themselves. And so I poke around in that for that when there's been a lot of difficult things early in life. Sometimes it keeps people stuck and they don't even know it. And so if I detect something like this, I might point it out and say, it sounds like you believe, that you should never trust. And unfortunately, that's a very lonely life. We have to know when to trust, when not to trust. So if they agree, like, you're right, that is kind of what I've decided. Maybe I overuse that and it's maybe hurting me. So then we can pray and say, if they want to do that, you can pray and say, Lord, I realize that I made a vow because I was hurt, that I will never trust. And you tell us not to make those kinds of vows that are blanket judgments. So I ask you to forgive me and help me have the wisdom to know the difference between someone I can trust and someone I cannot trust, so that I'm not always doing the same thing. I mean, it's kind of simple.
Love that. Studies have shown that there are actual benefits, physical, mental, and spiritual, to prayer. It's interesting how people can have those hidden biases and they don't even know it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's unconscious, subconscious, or subliminal. And so you have to kind of dig around to figure that out. And it could be based on a bad experience, right? But they need to understand one bad apple doesn't ruin the whole bunch, to
Yeah,
not
usually it's a
stereotype.
bad experience. Yeah, at
Right.
least one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've helped many patients throughout your career. I'm wondering, can you tell us the most moving or entertaining stories from your career?
So, in general, I would say what I enjoy the most is when I see people overcome a fear or they build their confidence so that they like go back to school or they leave a toxic relationship or they're able to do things that they've never done before and enjoy their lives. So in general, I would say that is what keeps me in this field. I just really love seeing people feel free to be their authentic selves and not who someone else has told them to be. But in terms of entertaining, what I get a kick out of is one of the ethical guidelines is that if you run into a client when you're, like out in public, you do not acknowledge the client unless they acknowledge you, because not everybody wants their friends and family to know that they're in therapy, right? And so you let them acknowledge you if they want to. And so I'm pretty careful about that. I don't run into a lot of my clients outside of the office, but what I get a kick out of is like I was at the mall one time and I could see one of my clients walking towards me with their family. So I didn't make eye contact. I'm just like going about my business. And this person yells, "There's my therapist." And so I got to meet
Wow.
their family. So I got a big kick out of that. And then other situations where, again, I'm out in a public place, I'm trying to be respectful, and they'll just say, "Dr. Cooper, come and meet my daughter or boyfriend or whoever." And so it's just like, it just really warms my heart.
Okay. And thank you so much for sharing these stories. It's interesting. So just to recap, you help a lot of folks when it comes to overcoming fear and phobias and whatnot. I always tell people that fear stands for false expectations or emotions
Appearing
appearing
real.
real.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes it stands for forget everything and run. But I always tell people that it should stand for face everything and rise. And so you help
Ooh, that's
guide
good.
people, yeah, and that's, because you always are gonna feel fear, but it's the choice that you make, And so you help people with that and helping folks accomplish goals and certain transitions. And so you're changing lives, helping folks to help themselves and facilitating these transformations and helping people to be real and authentic. Because that's the thing about people pleasing, by the way, that when someone's a people pleaser, they're being fake,
Yeah.
right? Due to fear.
Yeah.
And same thing with the narcissist, they have a fake self. They have that in common, right? It's just a it's just this lack of legitimacy, and so they have to be more like Jesus, right? Speak your mind, have those boundaries,
In a
and
respectful way, yes.
because you could be assertive and still be likable, right? And it's not an either or. So
Mhm.
that's something it took me a while to learn, of course, and I love the funny stories you mentioned because obviously, if you seek a it's private, but if they want to make it public, it's in this situations they did, and nothing wrong with that. I guess it's a loud advertisement, right, for your services, I suppose. I always give this question to my female guests because it's so important, particularly when we're dealing with trauma and some of the ills of society. Have you ever experienced sexism or any other kind of discrimination on your journey? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Well, of course I have. So, since this is audio, you can't tell. I am small. I'm 5'1", and I probably looked like I was 12 years old until I was about 40. So I had all those things kind of operating at once. But I'm Italian, and so we tend to speak our minds. So I did, like, for example, when I was supervising another individual, they didn't do what I told them, like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so I went and spoke to the person who was my boss, and I said, hey, I'm having this problem. And he said, why are you putting up with that? He said, tell him you do this or I'm done supervising you. It's like, okay. So, hey, that worked. But I did need permission from someone to, like, yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to be the authority figure here. But in other situations, I think what's more common for, like, racist kinds of things or sexist or even ageist, I guess, is you kind of get dismissed in a subtle way. You're not taken seriously. Your concerns are just sort of like, okay, well, it'll be fine. And so I've just learned I'm going to speak up. I'm going to give the logical reasons why I have this concern, why I have this position. And if they really don't want to listen, then I'm going to make a decision. What do I need to do to take care of me? I'm not going to keep trying to argue and fight. What do I need to do differently? Maybe I don't want to deal with this person. Maybe I'm going to, make a decision. I'm not going to keep putting money in this vending machine, right? Because what's coming back, I don't like.
Oh, I love that, particularly when it comes to relationships and boundaries. It's because every relationship, for the most part, should be a two-way street. It
Oh,
should
yeah.
be one-sided. You had mentioned the vending machine, right? It's got to give you what you put in, the in equal measure or roughly, right?
At least on a
And that's so
consistent basis, right?
yeah, it's got to be at least consistent, right? And you talked about. I think you were referring to microaggressions. Is that what you were alluding
I
to?
think that is what it's called now. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. And so you got to watch out for that. And I love that story you shared. And thank you about obviously the guy told you, "Hey, handle this yourself," and you did. So very inspirational and whatnot. Because a lot of people deal with that. I mean, with perhaps heightism, right? Maybe not being taken seriously because they're small and ageism, and whether people feel they're too young or too old. And so thank you for sharing these tales of how you handle these situations that we all go through,
Yeah.
particularly if you're a member of a minority group and
Yeah,
whatnot.
so I told my dad a couple weeks ago, it's like, I'm kind of glad I'm Italian because I've got that, like, fighter spirit in me. And so it's
Mhm.
like, well, I'll be nice at first, but then if you're going to give me trouble, you will get some kind of pushback. I'll still be polite, but you will know I am not happy. And I think usually I only have to do that once, and then you start to get cooperation in a lot of, at least for me, then I start to get cooperation, or I make a change that takes care of me.
Right. And that's a great thing, particularly with these more assertive cultures. There's a lot to learn from you guys. because oftentimes people mistake kindness for weakness. That's been
Yeah.
my issue.
Yeah.
And so you have to balance being kind and likable with standing up for yourself, not being a doormat,
Yes.
right? Or a pushover.
Yeah.
You want to push back, not be pushed over, so to
Yes.
speak. So there is something to that. That there are folks, but for many, it comes naturally. And unfortunately, I wasn't one of those people. And that's the thing about people pleasing. Oftentimes, it's born out of childhood trauma when you have an abusive caretaker, which is it's unfortunate. But there is hope, right, for people who have rough backgrounds, change
Sure.
for the better,
Sure.
become more assertive.
We all have to work towards the balance. So if you are more aggressive by nature, you have to kind of work on tempering the intensity. And if you are more of a giver, then you want to be aware of whatever your signs are that, hey, I'm starting to get worn out with this and I'm starting to get ticked off. And so that you respect your opinion, so that you speak up a little bit sooner. I mean, we all have things we're working on to be more balanced.
But you don't just only help people with that in-person one-to-one therapy. You also get to teach folks or guide folks through your books as an author. And I'm curious, where do you get your inspiration for your books?
So I mentioned that I'm a person of faith. And so I try to start my day with a few minutes reading the Bible and to understand more of how God would like us to live our lives, to understand more about just how the world operates and not get stuck in one little way of, like one little box, to try to see things from a bigger perspective. And then I also spend some time in prayer. For me, a lot of my creative ideas for books or audiobooks or videos or different episodes of things I've done, it comes from that time of prayer, the time of reading the Bible. And sometimes it's during that, and sometimes it's shortly thereafter. They tell you as a writer, you should write every day and just make it a discipline. But if I do that, it is very dry. And I wait until I'm inspired and I feel like I have like a purpose in what I'm going to do. And I oftentimes in prayer sort of sense an outline of this would be good to have, and then I do my personal study. My job is to fill in the outline, put, like the meat on the bones. And so that, I'm pretty sure that is how I've written every book that I've done.
Wow. And so thank you for sharing your process with us, because I'm a writer myself.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes, yes, an author. And I have a few books. So my understanding is that obviously, as a person of faith, you're inspired a lot by the Bible. You read Scripture, and the Bible is the best-selling book of all time.
That's true.
So you're onto something there. And obviously, with the prayer, the ideas come to you during and after the process,
Yeah.
right? And is it like right after, or does it take some time, or it depends, or
It's usually not long after. Sometimes it's while I'm getting like taking a shower. I will just like start to get these ideas and it's like I better hurry and write these down.
yeah,
Cuz I guess I'm peaceful and I've already been in I mean the Bible teaches we can be in the presence of God and just allow him to give us peace, and then that creates a lot of that frees up really our ability to hear from him. And I think it frees us to allow us to be our most creative, positive selves.
right. And I love that. And it's funny how ideas can come to you at any moment.
Yeah.
I have my system of idea capture. I text it to myself or I write it down
Hmm.
or in a notebook or well, write it down online. And it's usually if I'm not able to do that, I come up with a mnemonic so I can remember it.
Yeah,
So it doesn't slip away.
that's good.
But the thing about the Bible is there's so much wisdom in the Bible, particularly with the parables that Jesus preached.
Yeah,
And even if you're not religious, there's so much to learn from the Bible. And obviously the Bible has that code of conduct, the Ten Commandments, right?
sure.
If more people followed it, the world would be a better place, right?
It
Of
would.
course. Yeah. So there's a lot of wisdom in that book for sure. And
When I
so
was in
again, thank
college, I spent a lot of time reading the book of Proverbs. And I think it also further influenced me. It was like this is God's perspective on things, and it's like, this is interesting, you know? And so I think for me, it helps me in some ways have more confidence for myself, but also in other ways have more confidence that God will give me a strategy when that vending machine isn't working. It's like, Lord, what is the strategy that I need or that my client needs? How can we deal with this? What would work?
Wow, that's amazing. It's interesting how God works when you pray to him.
Yes.
But you had mentioned the book of Proverbs,
Yes.
and so there is a lot of wisdom there. One person comes to mind is Dr. Ben Carson.
Sure.
He used to have issues with anger, but he said he read Proverbs and it changed him completely. And
Yeah, he seems so mellow now, doesn't he?
yeah, yeah. And then so when he talked about and writes about these stories, oh my goodness, what the hey?
Hard to picture him like having rage.
Yeah, it really is because he seems very, very calm
Yeah.
all the time. So, so the Bible did it for him, and it does it for others, of course. And
Bible says
I'm
it's a
curious.
living book. And so something that's alive can change us. Cuz I mean some things are really hard to change, aren't they? So I appreciate whatever extra help I get by reading the Bible, that it helps me change the things I don't like about myself.
Okay. And so it's interesting how so many people read the Bible and can get the message you get from it. And so I'm wondering now, there's probably a lot of folks listening to you who want to do what you do and have an interest in people and the human mind and whatnot. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a therapist, a psychologist like yourself, and also for those who want to be an author?
Those are two different questions. You should give the advice about how to be an author because I'm very non traditional in the way I do it. So you might be the better person to answer that question. But in terms of like, if you want to be a therapist, I would say make sure you've done your own work. Be a patient for a while. Try to like get to know yourself, get to know your blind spots. Let somebody give you input so that you're not approaching your patients like a cookie cutter, like this is what works for me, so this is what you should do. It's like it doesn't really work that way because every personality is different and every situation is different. So you need to do your own work if you're really going to be good at it. And then also, I like devoured books. I read my textbooks that I had to read in school, and I read some pop psychology. I mean, there is value in that. But then I also I kind of learned which people were like the experts, especially early in the field of psychotherapy. They each had sort of their own spin on how to help people. Like, I wanted to understand personality because I think that's really key. That you have to understand how personality is put together. It's like working on a car. You don't just go monkeying with things hoping something improves. It's like you need to kind of know what needs the attention and does it need to be loosened or tightened. It makes a difference. And so the more that you can understand personality, I read everything I could find that was written by Karen Horney. She was the first female psychotherapist, I believe, and she wrote a lot of books, and it really made sense to me the way that she conceptualized the way people are put together. And then there were other people I read. Kohut I think he wrote a few different things. I found him very influential. There was a therapist named Winnicott, and he wrote again about creating a safe environment. I mean, just read everything you can of the people, not with philosophy, but people who were expert therapists. You can read a lot of philosophy, but philosophy is philosophy. It is not necessarily going to help you understand individual people's lives.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this breathtaking advice. As you talk, I jot down notes, and yes, and obviously I'm not going to be a therapist, but I am an aspiring life coach, and Obviously, there's differences between a therapist and a coach, but I still want to learn about the human mind and, of course, to be a better coach. So you mentioned that it's important that one do their own work,
Yeah.
perhaps give themselves self-therapy, or should they seek a
You
therapist?
should see someone who knows what they're doing.
Okay. All right. So they should be a patient themselves before
Yep.
they work with patients. Okay.
Some schools require it. I don't know if they do that anymore, but it's like you need to know what it's like to be a patient, and you need someone that will nudge different parts of you that maybe you're not even aware of, because otherwise you're going to do everything kind of one way and it'll all be intellectual, and it just is very limiting.
Okay. And it also gets you used to the idea that people are different, right? To not be the apply the cookie cutter thing, whatever.
I think so.
And yeah. And you also mentioned the pop psychology that perhaps one could read it and consume it for the entertainment value, but understand that there's shortcomings, there's limitations, right?
Yeah,
And
it can be
it may have
useful.
some value, right?
Absolutely, it can be useful. But, pop psychology is written for the general population. So, what happens is you can become more knowledgeable, you can expand your understanding of people. But a lot of people read it to try to help themselves. And so it sort of hits a wall where this is written for in general, but your specific situation may not fit the general information. And that's when people usually end up coming like for treatment. It's like, I've read all these books, it helped a little bit. So, and that makes sense, doesn't it?
Could you go ahead and as we wrap up, tell us the best way for people to find your books, audiobooks, and videos?
My website is drtonycooper.com. Doctor is DR and Tony is Tony. I have all kinds of media. You can find everything there. And I also have quite a few blog posts on kind of how-tos, like this is how to improve your stress level. This is how to improve your boundaries, things like that.
Excellent. And thank you so much for sharing that information with us. Again, I wanted to thank you for being a phenomenal guest. This chat simply blew away my expectations. And yes, and I want to thank the audience for listening all the way to the end. And do you want to leave us with any last word or final send off, Dr. Cooper?
I want to say thank you so much for having me. And I would just encourage people that whatever it is that you would like to see as a change in your own life, that you can do almost anything if you just take one little step at a time.
Thank you for imparting that wisdom to us.
Thanks so much for listening. I would love any feedback you want to send me about anything that is happening where you see change, improvement, growth, a greater measure of peace. So this is Dr. Tony Cooper. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.